And now it takes a moment. Okay.
Is there going to be a sign? Are we going to know? Oh, it says.
Yes, we are live now. Hi, everyone. Hi.
Hello, everybody.
We are here with JASIO. As you can see, he is a great guitar player. He is best known for his work with Kobra and the LOTUS, but he is also a great producer. He works with a lot of musicians and on a lot of projects. We toured with them in 2018 across Europe, Spain, France, and Switzerland, if I don't mind. And it was a great experience.
We went to Italy too, didn't we?
Yeah, in 2017.
Yes, there was another tour, yes.
Yeah.
We played in Rome, Milan, and then again Switzerland.
It was my first tour, by the way.
Say that again?
It was my first tour.
Okay, the one.
I
forgot that those were two different events, but I'll never forget that show in Rome because it's like that was a funny day. That was a funny.
Wait a second. What was the venue? Was it?
So if you remember, it was kind of out of the main part of the city and kind of an industrial sort of area. It had the dressing room was kind of like connected outside in the back.
Okay, now I remember. It was a Traffic Live, right?
The Traffic, yeah.
That's familiar.
That was unique. Yes.
And I remember my favorite thing about that day. I mean, the show was a lot of fun, but we had Andy Martingelli playing guitar with us. He had friends come from the part of the country where you guys make that the mozzarella di bufalo. Am I saying that right?
Naples. Yes.
Naples.
Yeah. And they brought one of those in a big bag, just full of its thing, like that. And tearing it off and eating it, and that's one of my favorite things in the whole world. I look for that here in Canada, and we have some Italian like shops and stuff that are making fresh produce and stuff, and I found a couple that have been good, but like nothing that was the same. Like, I feel like I have to go back to Naples to have that again.
You're very welcome whenever you want, man.
It's always a good excuse to go on tour in Italy. So.
Right. Yeah, you guys have amazing food. There is no question.
Thank you.
Yeah, he's taking credit for it. He's like, that was me.
That's great. So, how are you? First of all, how are you keeping up with this weird, I'd say, at least times?
Yeah. All right, man. Just doing my best. I'm doing my best to keep busy. Luckily, I work from home most of the time, and so it didn't affect my life as much as it probably affected most people's. And I've just been taking this as an opportunity to sort of reset things in my own life and just write a bunch of music and work on some projects and just I'm just trying to stay busy, like I feel like most people hopefully are trying to do. And everyone that I know personally has been relatively healthy through all this, and so just keeping fingers crossed, ready for it to sort of pass over. And
that's the most important thing. I don't know if it was the same for you, but to me, being locked in my home just took away a little bit of inspiration while working on music, because we get a lot of inspiration from everyday life and what happens outside of the house and something like that. And being forced to be in home, it was hard for me, at least at first, but then I got to get out, so I solved it. But
were you guys able to even go outside, like for a walk?
No, we were not. We were actually locked in our homes for like 1 month and a half, I think.
Yeah, you're right.
From the from March the 8th to actually May the 4th. The 4th,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was 2
So
months.
2 months, yes. We were not allowed to go outside if not just to go grocery store shopping, and this essential stuff. But or if you had a job to do outside, if it was permitted, you could go outside. Otherwise, you couldn't even go outside just for a walk.
And how would they enforce that? Were there people patrolling, like police in the streets, or are you just kind of the honor system? Everybody's staying.
Yeah, the second one, there was just some police around, of course, but everyone was a little bit scared, so no one went outside. So yeah,
it wasn't as extreme for us over here in Canada. It came and we have all our safety guidelines, and people were definitely told to stay home for a long time, but I was allowed to go outside and to walk the dog, or if I want to go down to the river to get inspiration, from outdoors rather than being outside. We were able to do that at least the whole time. So it wasn't like totally that, it's more extreme where you guys were for sure. There's a lot more people in a tighter space. So I can imagine that would have been pretty tough.
Yeah.
Well, yes, but when you risk your health, nothing is too tough. Of course, after some time, you risk to lose your mind, but we just had to be home, and rest and just pass the time. We did our best, and that's great. That's why we started to do this live chats to keep company to some people. Also, there are some parts of the world where they cannot leave their homes still. So
awesome
we try to just entertain people and pass time with them, and we liked it. So we are still going on.
Yeah, no, it's great. I think it's the perfect thing to do right now.
Yeah.
Well, also we had the opportunity to talk with a lot of interesting people we worked with, and now it's a great opportunity to talk with you also. So it's good. We prepared some questions to make to you. So if you want to answer to us, we can start with the first question. So Fede, if you want, since you are a fellow guitar player, you can go on.
Yeah.
The first question.
Can I start? Yeah. This question is a really standard question for all the guitarists. And when did you start playing guitar and why?
Yeah, I think I got my first guitar when I was about 13 years old. And,
me too.
Yeah, I got it. I mean, so my story is that I started playing piano first, actually, in my life. When I was like 5 years old, like really young, I got into like classical lessons and training. And I did that for about 8 years before I ever touched the guitar. And so I was going through, in Canada, we have, we call it like the Royal Conservatory of Music. You have, 8 main grades, exams that you can take. After that, I think there's a 9th and a 10th that you can take into university and stuff to get some certifications. But I did up to the grade 8, which is like the standard, you finish the program sort of milestone. And quite honestly, by the time I finished that, I couldn't fucking stand the piano anymore, and I couldn't fucking stand classical music anymore. I was just so sick of it. And I don't feel that way about it now at all. But, as a kid, it's like not cool to be at home having to practice Mozart, for like 5 hours a day or whatever. And I remember wanting to quit, I remember wanting to go in. I think it's actually funny. I think I wanted to learn how to play the Star Wars theme on piano. That was like the first thing in my head. I just saw the Star Wars movies and I was like, oh, that theme is so cool. I wish I could play that on something. And I got into some lessons, and I think I learned how to play Star Wars in the first week. And then I was like, all right, good, I'm done, But then at that point, my mom was like, we got you in here. You're sticking with this. And and she kind of pushed me through it, through that whole 8-year period. And I'm really happy she did, because it really informed like the rest of my life of music making, including today, because I write a lot of music on a piano now, like it never went away. And but back to the question, around 13 years old, I was sick of it, and I started getting into rock music, through various avenues. Cousins of mine had like Offspring records, and some games were coming out. I remember playing like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1, and it had all these cool punk songs and like some early Iron Maiden stuff, and that was the first I had ever heard music like that really before, and I just started to love it. And my close friends at school were getting into the same stuff, and we, me and a tight group of friends just started getting into instruments. Like my other buddy started playing guitar. I was screwing around with his guitar before I got my own. My other friends started playing drums, and it kind of just turned into that, and we got excited about playing, rock tunes, and then quickly it became heavy metal very fast, and then that didn't stop.
So you're a self-taught guitarist, right?
Yeah, for the most part,
Yeah, I get you, because your history is very similar to mine. Actually, I studied classical piano for 8 years as well. I started with piano, and then I was 18, really, because I was young as well. Yeah. I was eating classical music. I'm loving it now, of course, but at the time I was like forced to do that stuff, and I was just listening to other kind of music, and I was saying, "Oh, come on, I want to have fun playing, not just sticking to the score." And my main goal when I started play piano was learning to play Für Elise from Beethoven. Yeah. So I just learned it not in the first week, but like in the first year, which was very uncommon for a kid. Yeah. And then I stick to that, and I still remember it, of course, like in every single detail. But then I switched to the bass for playing rock music with my bands when I went to high school and all that stuff. Actually, I started to play the organ because in the band there was no bass player, and I was just sitting on the floor and play the pedal board of the organ with my hands. And then I decided to take a bass. And that's...
Okay, so you're playing just the bass notes with the pedals?
Yes, because it was useless to use the organ without the bass. So also the keyboard was like 4 octaves, so there was no lower register, so it was useless, totally useless.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that, man. I hear that story all the time, and I just think it's so funny because we all come back to it after, like we grow up a little bit and we're like, wait, holy shit, all this classical music is really like, it's beautiful, obviously, but it's just like the language that you learn that translates into everything you do afterwards. So
I think that the interesting part is that you became a great guitar player. I wanted to ask you if the classical method helped you approaching completely new and different instruments like guitar.
Yeah, I mean, I think it helped. I think it helped with all the training you get with just the language of music, like, because you come out of that knowing what intervals sound like, you come out of that knowing what different scales sound like, and it's not that you're going to go and immediately just play those scales on your other instrument, but you kind of have a bit of a roadmap, like, so what things can sound like, like, if you can compose something that's going to be like, well, if I need this sort of sound, I kind of know what to do to get there. So in that sense, it helped. But I also made an effort to really try and break those patterns when it came to like playing the guitar, for example. I like being able to slide around, and do things that you can't do on a piano at all. And I like being able to sort of beat it up a little bit and have it sort of express itself. And it
also bendings.
Yeah,
everything. it might be a hot take, you know, but I think the guitar is quite possibly one of the most, if not the most dynamic instrument kind of out there in terms of what you can do with it, you know, because you can play it very classically if you want to,
Yes, of course.
but you can also just break it in half and create new genres of music with it, you know, like, and it's quite spectacular, and it, like, what's cool about it is it's the personality of the player that comes through, right? And that's true for any instrument as well, but the guitar is like really sensitive to that, you know, like you can have 20 guitar players play the exact same thing, and no two takes will sound the same,
Yeah,
you know,
That's
like
because
they sound in different ways.
it's
a lot
crazy.
a lot of variables. It's not like the piano. Well, of course, the greatest pianists that you can just recognize their touch from how they play. But you know, when you play the piano, is just the keyboard, and then there is a mechanism meeting the strings. But
And there's sort
yeah,
of an expectation, right? There's an expectation of what you're supposed to make it sound like,
yes.
especially in classical music, you know, like you're supposed to not hit too hard, you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do that, and
Yeah,
I think with
on
the
guitar
there's
you're free. Yes.
no rules. There's no rules, and actually the more you break the rules, often the cooler shit gets, you know.
Oh yes.
I
Thank
like
you,
that.
Jimi Hendrix, for that.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Because
Well, talking about guitar, this leads to our next question. What was your first guitar? And did you have any lovely memories of it?
Yeah, my first guitar was it was a PV Raptor, which was basically like it's PV's entry level Stratocaster copy. You know, like very basic, nothing special at all. But I just remember, you know, wanting to get one for a while, and you know, growing up for me in my family, money was pretty tight. You know, I was primarily raised, you know, by a single mom with 3 sisters in the house, and you know, so it was always, you know, very prioritizing with where funds had to go. So if I wanted a guitar, I couldn't just ask and then get one right away. It took me a while to sort of like. I think I worked a little bit on my own, convinced my mom to throw in some money. I think I have a really weird story because my house got broken into around that age, and I had a PlayStation 2, I think, at the time, and it got stolen. You know, with all these games, and it took like 6 months, but we got some insurance money back from that, and I remember taking the insurance money from what I was supposed to go buy the new PlayStation with, and I got a guitar instead. At that time, which was like the greatest choice ever, you know. But I remember that being part of how that got funded too, you know. So I got this. It was a tobacco sunburst kind of really basic PV Stratocaster with a PV starting amp, and I hacked away on that guitar for a few years, probably 3 years, 3.5, maybe even 4 years or so, and I kind of sold it just unceremoniously, you know, like I got rid of it because I wanted money for a better guitar, you know, and in my life, I think I made a point at many times in trying not to have like sentimental value over like material things, you know. For me, it was like, it's just a guitar. I could always buy another one. And I think now I sort of wish I had kept it, you know, but I'm not too sad about it. I think, you know, I upgraded to an LTD, like an ESP, I think, from that afterwards. But yeah, you know.
I envy you about your ability to get rid of something old, because I have all of my older drums. Too bad that I don't have anymore my first pair of sticks. I'm really sad about it. But yeah, I don't know. It's the first time you hold in your hands a couple of sticks. For me, it's magical.
Right? Yeah. I get that, man. I get it, you know, and at the same time, I'd say that I envy you that you managed to hang on to that stuff, because for me, it was like, it was almost, I had to convince myself that, you know, it was better to move on for stuff, because I was like, I didn't have a lot of space. So it's like, oh, I don't have space for this many guitars. I have to get rid of some, you know, like there was always these excuses. Sorry, my thing just logged off. And yeah, you know, there's a couple guitars that I've sold that I wish I had, and that was probably one of them. And you know, it is what it is.
I sold my first bass as well to buy another bass exactly like the first one. Why I did that?
Right.
I did it. It was just
What kind of bass was it?
Oh, was just a basic starter pack bass. Without the starter pack, it was just a bass. I don't even remember the brand. It was just like a Fender Precision, but it was not a Fender Precision, of course. It sounded like shit, and then I discovered that it wasn't the bass; it was the bass player. So I started to try to learn to play better, and I failed. So I joined Ravenscry. Sorry.
I don't want to talk about my first guitar, because it was really, I think it was the worst.
Okay.
Because it was a Strat copy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Of Behringer.
Okay.
By a starter pack.
Right.
Okay, you got it. Right. But yeah, I have some lovely memories about that. So
Yeah.
He's still in my house, by the way.
Right. I really romanticize, you know, the idea of, you know, making great music on some of this cheaper equipment, because, you know, like you said, it's not the bass, you know, it really isn't. I think Steve Vai will sound like Steve Vai on the cheapest guitar in the world, you know.
Oh yes. A very good example for me is always, speaking of guitar players, Andy Timmons.
Right.
He plays awesomely in a guitar which is nothing special. It's basically an Ibanez with just, it doesn't have even 24 frets, you know. You just have two single coils and a humbucker. What?
I think it's 22.
Yeah, frets? I don't know. I think it's exactly like a Fender Stratocaster. It's just an Ibanez with all those features. It just has a volume knob and a tone, and it sounds amazing. I don't know. I saw him live. It was just the guitar, the cable, and the amplifier. It was astonishing.
But I mean, this is something I didn't learn until way later. But you know, a 22 fret guitar will sound better a lot of the time than a 24, just because of the physics.
That's because of the scale. Yeah. Oh,
yeah. It's actually kind of optimized, sort of, to you know. I think the differences are probably really small, but when it comes to the math, I think 22 is actually sort of like the right amount, and I think that's why they sort of built it that way. I don't know 100% for sure. I'm relaying things based on things that I've read and have been told before, but I think there might be something there.
Well,
now I have 7 fret guitars, you know, so I'm like ruining the whole fucking thing.
I suppose that if they built their first guitar with 22 frets, there was a reason. So
yeah, I don't know if the first one was built that way.
I was thinking about the electric guitar. Like from the first Stratocaster was 22 frets, right? Or 21?
It might have even been 21.
I don't know. I'm a bass player.
Worth a Google, man. You
know? Just remember that. By the way,
yeah, Peter, you should know it.
About if the Fender Stratocaster had 21 or 22 frets. I don't remember the first one.
Yeah, we can Google it.
Come on, we can go.
Yeah, let's just go on Google. We do have it. Google.
Yeah. What stupid.
22.
22. 22. Yeah.
I don't know. The first answer says 22. Let's go for that.
Yeah, let's trust Google. If it's not real, it will be real because Google said it. So
exactly,
it's reality that is changing based on Google.
Yeah.
So, Simon, go on with the next question. So
Okay, we can say the guitar is your first love, but do you play other instruments? That was our next question, but actually you already answered that you also play piano, but do you play anything else besides piano and guitar?
Sure, man. Yeah, I've played all kinds of stuff. I haven't put as much effort into anything else outside of piano and guitar. Those two have mostly, been a large part of my time. But I've played bass on record and on records, and it sounds good enough. I think, my first the album that I released with my band that I had before Kobra and the Lotus. I was in Kobra and the Lotus. Shadowblade. I did all the bass on that record. I did all the bass actually on the High Priestess album of Kobra and the Lotus as well. We didn't have a bass player during that time. We were in the studio. We were in the process of getting Brad at that time. So all the bass on that record I played. And growing up in school, I played the oboe in band, like in junior high. For funny reasons, I think, and at that time too, I was taking other instruments home to fuck around with, like trumpets and saxophones and whatever. I have a cello here now that I rented a couple months ago because I'd always wanted to learn to play a cello, and so I brought one home from the store. It was so reasonably priced to do so, and so I did that, and I've been playing with it. And it's just like an amazing sounding instrument. So yeah, I mean, I actually like getting my hands on all sorts of things. And in the last few years, I mean, it's piano, but synthesizers, as an instrument to me, I've been completely obsessed with them. Just once I learned what they were capable of and how to start designing sound from scratch, it became this whole new like world to explore. And I studied physics in school, in university and stuff, and I've always really enjoyed, everything pretty much about that whole world and looking at, the universe as these tiny things of particles bouncing into each other and doing all these things. And when I really realized what a synthesizer was, it's just an oscillator creating a wave out of electrons, and that you could then start to manipulate and shape however you so choose. Like, I was like, oh, holy fuck, like this is cool, and all the filters and stuff that you can do with it. I totally have lost myself in that as well now, so. But yeah, as far as instruments, I don't discriminate. I just love music, and kind of like I said with the piano, once you I feel like sort of get that language in your head, it's not too hard to jump around a little bit. Obviously, you're not going to be a performance like expert at everything. That would be, some people are probably, but it doesn't take too long to get at least some sort of sounds out of most things that sound half decent. So yeah, I enjoy it. I just enjoy the process of making sounds.
That's a good way to think about synthesizer. I never thought about them that way also, because now that I think about it, waves is what everything is made of. So that's good.
In a freaky universal way, man.
Yes.
Really quite crazy.
That's interesting. You work with waves, and that's what everything is made of. That. Oh
yeah, it's nuts. It's really nuts. Sorry, go ahead.
No. I was saying that I love physics as well, and I never thought about it.
Well, it's nuts because I remember being in school and taking the courses where you start learning about wave mechanics, right? So you start learning about the equations that govern how waves propagate and diminish over time. And, once you start to develop a bit of intuition of how that all works, you start seeing it everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, fucked up. It's really weird, like kind of almost like you're hallucinating at times, because I could be walking along the fucking beach, and I see the way the water comes up on the sand.
Yeah,
and
the patterns. Yes.
Right at the very last minute, where the water thins out and turns into nothing, it always leaves a wave pattern like etched into the sand, and you can look at that. It's like, holy shit! This has an amplitude of this high. It has a frequency. Of this high. It has a period. And it's like, everywhere you look,
you are going full Fourier in that, and you go for that, and you
you realize a synthesizer is just this fucking engine where you can just start creating these things and
yes.
It's fun.
Yeah, you just combine all the waves to create more waves on the resonation. It's great. It's absolutely great. Also, when we talk about synthesizer, there are also different ways to approach the synthesis, so it's even better, additional synthesis and all that stuff, or granular synthesizers. I don't know if you use them. I love them. They're great. So okay.
And what's cool is that even though that stuff is created, using electricity, what I said about the guitar, like or any other instrument, the personality of the person going into that always gets impressed on the sound,
Yes.
and it's no different with electronic sounds versus acoustic instruments, really, because it's your brain, it's you're making thousands of really, really small choices constantly, and every one kind of leads to a new path that another human being would never come to. It's like this. I don't know if you're familiar with Boltzmann's, chaos theory. And it's like a chemistry concept where, this from the time that the universe started, as particles hit each other, things just become more and more complicated over time, just by the nature of things, and it just has to do with those just thousands and thousands of tiny individual choices that lead out to something big. And that's sort of the, for me, that's like the beautiful thing about musicians, about music, and like this whole world that we kind of involve ourselves with, because you get to see this like soul of humanity somehow being intertwined with what's already out there in the universe, and it creates something that never existed before. And to me, that's like the ultimate poetry,
I totally agree. Actually, I talked with Simon a lot in the past about these things. But what is the brain if not a very complicated oscillator?
Exactly, dude. That should be on a T-shirt. I would wear that.
Yeah. I agree.
You should start a brand.
Yeah. Totally. I love that. I love it.
That's a very good way to see it. I never thought about that. That's good. So going back to guitar, which is also an oscillator. If you there are still waves going to electricity, still waves, a lot of waves. Which are the guitarists that have influenced you and you're playing the most?
It's been a lot, man. It's been a lot, like when I first started playing guitar, I was really kind of excited about a lot of like 80s rock and metal music, and bands like Iron Maiden and Dio and, Metallica and Megadeth come to mind. And I mean, really in the earlier days of my playing, I think when I heard basically guys like Dave Mustaine and, into every guitar player he's had in Megadeth, all of those guys, the way they played absolutely fascinated me. The Jason Beckers of the world, the Marty Friedmans of the world, these other players, Jeff Young, Chris Poland, these jazz guys, who would come into metal music and just fucking rip all over it. To me, that was like, whoa, this is crazy. Even, and it's funny because heavy metal is such a small world, but even going from something to like listening to the Iron Maiden dudes play this very traditional kind of melodic music to these speed metal shrapnel players, it just was like mind blowing in my mind. So I remember, you know, very early on trying to learn all these old Metallica records, and once I heard Rust in Peace, you know, as an album, that became a project, you know, for a good 2 years of my life, where all I wanted to do was be able to play, you know, all those songs and solos and stuff. And Countdown to Extinction, the next Megadeth record as well, just has fucking beautiful guitar work in it. I mean, like, really beautiful guitar work. It's just that kind of stuff early really inspired me. And then I got to work at a guitar store, you know, throughout much of my high school times. And my bosses there were really incredible finger-style players, you know, like Chet Atkins and stuff like that. And I never seen anything like that before, you know, and that blew my mind too, because it's like, it was like me and a couple other dudes in the store were like these metal guys trying to learn arpeggios for hours and hours and hours and hours. And you know, our manager would come in and be like, "Oh, I don't understand how you guys do that shit. It's just so crazy," you know. And he's like, "I can't play as good as, well, not as good." He's like, "I can't play like that." And then he would pick up a guitar and play a rendition of some classic tune, playing the bass, playing the melody, playing like harmony, all with one fucking hand. And like for us, that was like, whoa, how are you doing all this? You know, like that's fucking nuts. So that opened me up to that whole world, you know, and we had this awesome drawer of DVDs from, you know, all these instructional, you know, the Eric Johnson, Steve Vais, Paul Gilbert, you know, all these guys, Nuno Betancourts of the world. You know, I just love Jeff Beck, you know, I just got into a lot of it, you know, anything and everything. And I tried to be open-minded, you know, and just kind of pull inspiration from all over the place. But ultimately, I can say for sure that I was more interested in the players that were willing to do weird stuff, you know, stuff that wasn't the same old pentatonic licks over and over and over again. There's nothing wrong with that. And I have a greater appreciation for it now than I probably ever had. But that's why guys like Marty, for example, you know, Friedman, as a player, I always thought he was so beautifully musical with his note choices and willingness to sort of bend into notes that didn't make sense in context until he hits the next note, you know? Like, that's a bit of a jazz sort of approach to things, right? Where you're willing to just create this tension that's like, oh, this sounds like shit, until you get that release. Oh my God, my heart, you know, like, and I was always really inspired by people who could do that. And I tried, you know, to sort of bring that sort of thing into my playing. And, you know, if Steve Vai is a name that comes to mind, I think he just makes some of the coolest sounds on a guitar. And like, still to this day, I watched a video. He released a thing like 2 weeks ago. He's still inventing new techniques. He's doing this crazy, you should check it out if you haven't. He's like bending every note, you know, he's hitting 4 strings at a time and bending everything into a weird intonation and releasing one while he's hitting another. And it's like this very like, it's crazy shit.
How can you do that? I have to watch.
Check it out. It's really cool. I forget the name of it right now, but if you type in Steve Vai, it'll probably come up fast because he's blowing everyone's mind, you know, all over again right now. And
another thing that I never understand about Marty Friedman is how he holds his pick.
I know.
How he can play.
It's like this weird, like upside down.
It's like this. I cannot say it. It's like
it looks like
it's
holding the pick.
I try to hold the pick like him, but
it probably flies out of your hand, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's weird, man.
Hey everyone, there's a lot of people saying hi.
Oh, hey.
Hi Andre, hi Van Vender, hi Lowell, and hi Jesse. Yes.
Sorry guys, we are talking about guitarists.
I was in the private chat on the side, so I didn't see that, but I see the live comments now. Everybody, hey dudes.
Yeah, but by the way, it's really strange how he holds his pick. And another guitar player that I discovered recently, it's Tosina Basi. Do you know that?
I know who he is. I don't know his playing style personally very well. I haven't listened to a lot of his music.
Oh, it's easy. It's Victor Wooten techniques on guitar, by the way. No,
Yeah.
it's more complex than that.
Yeah.
But it's an amazing guitar. He is an amazing guitar player, and yeah, it's.
I mean, he must be good, man. I see his name and his face everywhere, so he must be.
Yeah, it's there are a lot of great guitarists right now in the modern age. For example, the guitar players from Chon, I say correct. It's a math rock instrumental band, and they are great. You have to check it out.
Okay, yeah, I will. Send me a link or something after this.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah, those are just bands that only Federico knows. So don't worry.
Perfect.
He thinks that all the bands that he listens to, he thinks that they are extremely big. Then he discovers that no one listens to them. So it's just of course I'm kidding.
But isn't that funny? Sure. Isn't that funny how that works though? Like you especially, I mean, for me, when you're younger, it's even crazier how you sort of build these images of people and stuff in your head, and then you realize it's just a bunch of fucking human beings, a bunch of flawed humans just trying to say something.
Oh yes, I think that it's interesting, and it comes a lot with experience. When you are growing up, you are just thinking that the people you listen to when we are talking about musicians are like idols and something like that. And then maybe you get the chance to meet them in person, and you realize that they are just a person like you. And I don't know. For me, it's very inspiring. For many people, is something that is like a turn down because they think, "Oh, I thought that he was a better person." But I think that everyone is just a person. They have their problems. They have their lives. They are just maybe very good at doing something, and they are sharing it with the world. And also, it gives me the thought that there are a lot of people capable of doing a lot of things, and they are not able to express it. It's just, I find it inspiring. I think that Simon agrees with me on this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I discovered it actually touring with other guys, other bands. I found out the human part of musicians, heroes, musical heroes, and also we were having a chat with my drum teacher last Monday. To me, he was like a superhero because he's just amazing playing drums. But then I found out that he's very human and is very inspiring, actually, as Fajr is saying. And everyone has his powers, but also his own weakness. And the best part is how they share both the weakness and the superpowers. Let's call them so. And that's the most inspiring thing about it, about meeting the other musicians.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, because, like, if you think someone is just, like this, like all that, like you idolize and you think they're just so great in every way, maybe there's a part of you that thinks like, oh, I'm not all that and I could never be like that, But when you realize it's just another, like you said, another human that has, flaws like anyone else, you can be like, wow, like I'm actually, this dude's just like me, and it's just someone who was really passionate about their instrument, and and had something to say with it. And you can definitely do that.
Yeah.
Absolutely do that.
Yeah, also, I always try to remember that someone who does something is just someone who tried a lot of times and they failed one time less than me.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
just that's how it is actually. When you see people having success on or anything else or doing stuff, they tried a lot before getting there, and usually it's not the first try, the good one.
No, there's that saying: a master of anything has failed more than the amateur has ever even tried. The master has failed thousands of times to get to where he's going, and somebody at the beginning hasn't even tried 1,000 times yet, and they're already beating themselves up over whatever. You just have to get over it and keep playing.
Yes, it's all about the process, not the results.
You have your whole life.
Yeah. Lowell Parker says, when I met Glenn Tipton, he was a really sweet man, but he was definitely the superhero I thought he was. LOL, so good. He is just saying the exact opposite.
So just really quick, I'll interject. Lowell is he's a great dude. He lives in Texas. I just did a couple songs for his project. It's called Cool Juno. He's been getting cool musicians kind of from around the world onto some of his songs. I just mixed a track that has Fabio Leone on it, and I just co-wrote and did a song with him where I played everything except for the drums. And we just finished it. It got mastered a few weeks ago, and that will probably be out sometime this year, whenever the rest of the things align with it.
Great. We'll check it out. It's great. Yeah. I can't wait to hear it with Fabio on the voice as well. So
awesome. Fabio and Fede were asking you a lot of questions about guitars, guitarists, but I'm going to ask you something more about music in general, as I am a drummer. So, which are the albums and the bands that have influenced you the most during your musical growth?
Yeah, it's a tough question to answer, because I would reference, all of those guitar players I named, just their bands and those records that were come out, those were definitely an answer to all those. The first real rock record I think I ever listened to front to back in my life was, and this is, I hope it doesn't make some people feel too old, but Americana by The Offspring.
I loved it.
1990s, right? I was fairly young when that was out, and I heard that, and I can say for sure that absolutely changed something inside of me, in terms of my relationship with music, just because it was something totally different from anything I had ever heard before that. And then man, all those, the whole encyclopedia of rock music that was put out in the 70s and the 80s were really big, and then the 90s as well. And what's crazy is that in the last 2 years of my life, I think only really recently I've come to appreciate some of the stuff that was happening in the 90s for guitar, with guys like fucking Tom Morello, and these dudes who came after that whole shrapnel era of shredders, who were like, how do I do something different now? These guys have played every note possible at every speed possible, and that's I can't do anything new there, so what do we do now? And it turns out that fucking bending notes and sliding them around in cool grooves happen to be the next thing. And it's a really easy trap for musicians to fall into when they're learning how to play, to think that the best players are the ones who can play a lot of stuff, and it's just frankly not true.
Yeah.
It's not, and not taking away at all from learning how to play a lot of stuff, but I will quote Gavin Harrison. Simon, do you know who he is? He's a drummer.
Yeah, absolutely. Porcupine Tree.
Right? So I watched a clinic with him years ago, and it was one of the best music clinics of any kind I had ever been to in my whole life, probably, because just the way he thinks about music was just, it was really wonderful to listen to him talk. And it also felt like I was in line with his thinking, because at the time I was surrounded by not people specifically, but a culture of like, learn how to play as many notes as you can, and that's what you're going to be appreciated for. And he got up and said, learning how to shred, or whatever the quote was, like if you think about your musical journey in life as jumping from, like, getting from one side of a river to another, hopping on the stones to get there, learning how to play like a motherfucker like that is stone number 2 or 3. Like that's really early in your process. You learn like technical mastery, or that part of the instrument. That's sort of an early process. And then once you are able to do that, like, what do you do then? And the answer is not to keep doing that. The answer is to play less and less, and to learn how to just make choices that are musical. And that process takes the rest of your life. Like this is really slow. It's almost like a spiritual thing, that you just become like one with your instrument, and it often becomes about learning how to do less things than more. And so nowadays, I'm most impressed not with the guys who can play a lot of notes, but the ones who can say the most with the least. Like I've become a bit of a minimalist in that sense, and I still appreciate the shredders, and I still appreciate all of that, but really I want to be able to feel something from a musician, and you don't need a lot of notes to do it, and that's, back to that whole, like, where music went in the 90s with rock and everything. It became all these amazing records of like making weird sounds on the guitar, and it became about the groove more so, and the stuff is not as easy to play as you might think. Not perfectly, bending a note into a perfect pitch every time when it's a weird bend is not a simple thing necessarily, and that's sort of where my mind's been, in the last few years with music. It's about how to say more with less, kind of thing.
Yeah,
and of course, to quote the great Yngwie Malmsteen, how can less be more?
I totally agree. That's maybe one of the most difficult things to achieve, even if it's achievable, because I think that is a journey with no end. It's a continuous growth to just go and express yourself with your instrument. But when you get to have the ability to do it, you will never stop to find something new to learn about that. We have some questions from
Yeah.
from Bill.
I love Timo. Timo is a great dude. He's an incredible guitar player. I absolutely had a lot of fun playing with Timo on stage, man. Nothing but great things to say. He's a good guy.
I think there were 7 shows actually, because we were touring with you when you played with Timo.
Right.
And
yeah.
I have to say, I don't know if I can say it, but next Monday we will actually have a live chat with him here.
Perfect.
So perfect timing. Then we had another question. I think we missed it, which was this one. Guys, did you listen to any song just because of the guitar sound settings? I didn't, to be honest. Not just for that, at least.
No, I don't know how to answer that. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if I've listened to any like song particularly because of the sound, but I mean, once I find a player with a really cool sound, I'll definitely try and find more. Like
maybe I check out what gear he used for recording. I don't know.
Me or like the guy?
Yeah.
Gear. He's talking about gear because it
Guitar Gear, yeah,
thinks
sorry.
it still thinks that the gear is the most important part of the
No, it's
sound.
the right
It's
hand.
growing. It's growing. Don't worry. He's still young.
It is important.
Yes, but if you don't have the right hands, you can have
Yeah.
all the gear you want, but
Yeah.
it's not right.
I'm working on it.
There's a chain of command, like when it comes to the sound, and so it obviously starts with the player, and we can assign an arbitrary percentage. Maybe it's 50% of the sound, maybe it's 80% of the sound. I don't know, but it's a large piece of the sound, and then the gear matters.
Yeah, I think it's, for me, it's right now it's the 80% of the sound with the right hand. Yeah,
I agree.
because
Bill,
on the last record we did.
Bill is asking, have you heard a jazz player named Grant Green? Killer
No,
Tone?
I gotta check him out. I haven't heard him.
Grant Green.
I haven't listened to a lot of jazz in my life. I'll be honest with you. I've listened to a little bit, but it was never the thing that got me that excited, if I'm being really honest. I'm a songwriter. At my nature is like I'm attracted to the structure of songs. There's a psychology to it that has just always it works on me, and I've always been fascinated by it. But I appreciate jazz, and I've had my moments with jazz, and even now I become more interested in it because of just simply not the music theory behind it, but sort of what I mentioned before, how jazz players are really good at phrasing, yeah. And it's something that excels in that field, and I'm learning more about some of that these days, in terms of how harmony over different kind of root notes works, and where different directions you have options to go through, and you go watch these. You guys know what's his name? Jason Collier. I think.
Yes.
Jacob Collier, or whatever. He's like brilliant music guy who's come up. I just recently watched that video he did where he proved that every note works over every bass note real quick. He's like, watch this, and I'm just like, okay, I see what you mean. And it all depends on kind of where you go before and after, and I'm fascinated by that idea, so that's something I'm going to be exploring more for sure.
Oh yes, jazz it's not that. If you go beyond the theory of jazz, I think it's complicated, but that's not what jazz is about. You don't think about theory when playing jazz. You think just about how musical you can get and how to make your instrument sing, I think.
Yeah. And it seems like a very freeing kind of playing style, like I watch guys like Herbie Hancock and stuff just jamming on the piano and not giving a fuck, and it's awesome.
I think it's also about the interplay that the musicians have during the performance.
Yeah,
that's very interesting. How they do a sort of dialogue while they're playing. That's very fascinating to me about jazz.
The thing about jazz,
it's fascinating, and it's like, things like fusion, for example, where you can have an ensemble of 4 people or however many, and they don't have to be listening to each other to be, they do and they can, but they don't have to. They kind of just know what lanes they can stick to and make it work. And they'll just running off in their own little worlds, and how it all comes together. It's quite beautiful.
I always feel about jazz like it is a fun genre to play, but not so fun to listen to. I don't know why. That's just how it works with me.
Sure.
I enjoy playing it a lot as a bass player, but when I have to listen to other people playing jazz, I just go like, oh no, I don't want to. I don't know. It's just like.
Yeah, I particularly found a like for like Latin jazz kind of things, just because I found the grooves like quite actually hooky and catchy. I found more, I guess, more of the hooks that I was looking for, sort of in Latin jazz
Yes,
stuff.
that's very different. I'm thinking about people like Michel Camilo and those Latin jazz artists. Yeah, that's fun to listen to. Yes. Yeah, talking about jazz, I like talking about I don't know, a lot of different kind of music. So yeah, it's not fair to say something like this about jazz. I have a tricky question.
Yeah.
What's your favorite guitar solo ever that you wrote?
Da da down.
Yeah, that is a tricky question.
I'd go with the next one.
I mean, no, hold on, I'll find an answer. Because,
Okay.
like,
No, I was talking about the next solo you are going to.
Right,
That would be
exactly.
good.
I get it now. Yeah, dude, it's hard, because, like, I mean, you know why it is. You don't pick your children, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And often, guitar solo is. I've always tried to make it more about serving the song than about serving myself, you know.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't always call for, I don't know, trying to show off as a player. You're just trying to make something that's musical with the song. At least that's what I've always tried to do. But to that note, if I think about like the catalog that I've recorded with Kobra and the Lotus over the time, I love a lot. I can say all of the stuff that we've made together. There's the introduction to a song called Heartbeat that we have on the High Priestess record comes to mind for me, just because it's sort of like this moment, where the song hasn't started yet. This guitar thing is setting up the atmosphere for everything. And when I wrote that particular piece of music, it was a very inspiring, very real feeling thing for me, and I'm really, really happy that got put into, a recorded piece of music that got put out, for people to listen to, because there's like very much a piece of my soul like living in that,
Yeah,
That's great.
And I can say that, about like all the guitar work and stuff, but like it's a special moment, like it's a more special moment than maybe the others, because the others are there to. Usually a solo happens, after your second chorus or something, or, it's later in the song and there's already a context, and so you have to play with the context. Whereas in this case, like this is the context on a plate for you guys, and I got to explore that a little bit there. So maybe that's my answer for now. Maybe it'll change.
Yeah. Oh, I'll always say that when you can figure out where to put the snare and kick rock riffs, speak to me in a language I immediately understand. Jazz is a mystery.
Good, but that's what's cool about it. Like another thing that I took away from Gavin Harrison at that same clinic was he talked about his time where he got hired by King Crimson to play drums for a little while. And the story he told was when he got to the rehearsals, the first thing the guys told him was, all right, we're going to let you do your thing. Kind of just listen to the songs, play whatever you feel like is going to work with, with the thing. We're going to trust you, but you're not allowed to do fills going from the 4 into the 1 of the next bar, which is where 99% of drum fills usually live, right? It's like 1, 2, 3, bam, into the next part. That was the rule. You can't do that shit. So, like, he's like, that was the first time in his life where he's like, man, I had to like completely rethink everything. It's like now if I want to flourish stuff, it has to be after the 1 or the 2, and I have to hold back and somehow keep that musical and at the right energy, dynamic, right? And that's just going to make you grow as a player, take the challenge and figure it out.
Oh, yes. He is still on a concert hangover from Kobra in Tucson, Arizona in 2019.
Thank you, man.
Wow.
So let's move on with the next question, Fede. It's your turn to.
Yeah, finally. And the question for you is, how did you join Kobra and the Lotus?
Yeah, we were kind of just growing up in the same music scene here in Alberta, in Canada. And Alberta is a province in the United States. They would call it a state, but we have provinces here. And so I grew up in a city. The name is Edmonton, which is the capital here. And then Kobra and the Lotus was based out of Calgary, where I live now. And the music scene in our province was fairly small, like there's only so many metal bands, and you're all playing shows with each other, and you all kind of know each other a little bit, if not personally, of each other, existing. And through the natural process of people just sort of joining bands, I grew up with my one of my best friends' older brother, his name is Tim, was, had his own band in Edmonton. And when I had my own band here, I asked, if he would, play the other guitar in my band, and he was willing at the time because he just was down to play in, lots of music. And we did that for a while. And eventually he went and played with Kobra and the Lotus for a little while. And, he's on that self-titled record. And kind of when that happened, we had an opportunity to play a show together, where we went out to the mountains, and my band opened for them there. And so we just got to know each other. And then a year later, they needed another guitar player. And I was in university at the time. I was in my third year. And but they had some pretty exciting things going on, some that were public and some maybe that weren't at the time. I can't really remember. And for me, it was just an opportunity to, it was bigger than what I was able to do by myself, because I just had me in my band, and of course my guys who were like, I'm so grateful for them, to play. But it was like, just a local thing that we were doing, with no funding and no labels or anything like that. And they were starting to get some momentum. And I just thought, like, hey, this is a great opportunity to go do a little bit of touring and play music with other people. And, I just decided to jump into the deep end. I had to finish a whole semester of school basically while on the road. I was like submitting work over email, and I just told my professors, like, hey guys, this thing happened. I'm gonna go like play shows with like Judas Priest and Metallica and whatever in Europe. I hope it's cool that I come, I'll be back for the finals, and they were all like super supportive of it, which was awesome. And I managed to finish that year. And then 8 years have gone by, like I never got to go back to school to finish my degree. It was like one thing I've always been like, fuck, I should have, it sucks that I didn't finish that, but not like, it doesn't suck obviously, because I wouldn't change, any second of that.
Oh, yes.
How it happened.
We actually have a guitar player who graduated while we were touring. Right,
really?
Fede? We were touring with Angra. We were in Budapest at the time. He flew back to Italy to graduate, and then he flew back to Budapest to play the show.
Mm-hmm.
I did it. It's
Congratulations, man. What did you finish your degree in?
Yeah, it was totally mad situation.
Yeah. What subject?
What?
What subject? What subject did you study?
It was impulse responses.
Really?
Yeah, he didn't get the question. It's just IT, IT music. He's graduated in IT music.
You go and measure spaces, like You go and like measure halls and stuff and create
I made a ear loader with some, say that. Fajro, can you help me?
I don't know what you want to say, so how can I help you? Just tell me in Italian, I will translate.
Ok. Alcune caratteristiche di spazio.
Characteristics of the space.
Yes.
Yeah.
See? it was not that difficult. It was just measuring some characteristics of the spaces to get the impulse responses for what were you working on with the impulse responses? Just impulse responses, like for any kind of device?
Yeah, they were cabinets for guitar cabinets, or just remember some cathedral ears.
Yeah.
Some chambers, and don't remember that there was a special impulse response, by the way, that was can I say that when there is maybe a nuclear holocaust and you have a bunker, I can say that. It's correct. Yeah, I got a bunker ear impulse response. Yeah, it was.
Do you use any of the impulse responses that you've made in your music?
Right now, no.
That's cool work, man. I know, like a lot of auditoriums, for example, there are halls that work both for music performances as well as speaking.
Yeah, of course.
Right? And the kind of acoustics. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
I was going to say the kind of acoustics you want in a room when someone is speaking is completely different from the kind of acoustics you want in a room when there is music coming off a stage, right? So have guys like you go in and measure the space and create movable sound panels, right? So like when there's a speaker, they'll lower down the panels on the side to kind of capture more of the reflections, and then when the music plays, they rise up to get rid of that stuff to allow more of the space to echo out, you know.
Yeah, that's great, because the impulse response of the room is different from based on when you measure it. So yeah, that's very hard to do. You just go around with this measurement microphone and you just measure the response, the actual response of the room, and it's crazy, and not every time it works good. So many of them just go with their calculation, all that stuff, and then they go by ear. So it's like kind of an art, and it's good.
Yeah.
Bill is asking, what were you studying in school, Yasha?
Physics, geophysics specifically. So it was a geophysics major, which basically it's like you're taking a physics degree. A lot of math, a lot of physics, some geophysics, some astrophysics. It's just fucking physics.
Waves everywhere.
Waves.
That's good.
Waves. This is the question.
I don't want to read the next question because I want the next one. So the one after this. So who wants to read this new question? Simon, go for it.
Yeah. What was your best live performance ever with them? We mean with Kobra and the Lotus, of course.
Yeah. We've really, man, you know, I have to say I'm so grateful, because honestly, we've had the opportunity to just really do some incredible things, you know, over these past many years. And I think, you know, it's like it's almost cheating to say this, but, you know, in 2014, we got to do something like 25 shows with Kiss and Def Leppard as the support band across North America throughout the summer. And there's nothing that really can compare to experiencing that, to be really honest with you, to not only to be out, you know, on tour with two of the greatest rock bands ever, to watch them play every day, to like get to learn from watching what they do. Also to just be traveling on, you know, every highway every song has ever been written about, you know, like on this, you know, down across the United States, and every truck stop that every rock star you've ever heard of has, you know, stumbled into at the middle of the night looking for a snack or a shower, you know, and like the whole just experience of getting to do that on that arena level was fucking just, God, I mean, what can I say, man? That was so cool. That was so
Yeah.
fun to get to do that.
I get it.
I can only imagine
As
that.
I can imagine, yeah.
Like, you know, like I don't even. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to even describe, really, because there's like a hint of sadness because we all kind of felt it while we were doing it. We were worried that that wasn't going to exist for rock music anymore. You know, like we were seeing that these older guys are still able to sell enough tickets to make that kind of thing happen, and to put a little city to work. Every place we went to, you know, there's 200 union workers just working during the day, and you know, it's actually feeding a lot of families, that industry. And it's really hard to know what that's going to look like 10, 15 years from now, because a lot of these older guys are, you know, unfortunately getting old and passing away and not going to be able to do it. And there aren't really many, if any, I'm not going to say any because I don't know for sure, but, you know, the amount of rock bands that exist today with people who are under 40 that can sell out 15,000 tickets at an amphitheater or an arena it's getting rare, man.
I think there are none in existence under 40 years old. If we are talking about rock music, of course.
Yeah, you know, I don't think it's like going like completely. It's just the culture is changing a little bit, you know, and so right now, it seems like, you know, there are some electronic artists that can do it. Some of the main, you know, the iconic pop artists can still really sell a lot of tickets, which is great. So it's not hopeless. Like people still want to go see live music.
Oh yes.
And you know, history. You look at history, man. Like the kind of music that has been popular always fluctuates.
Oh yes.
You know? And so I'm not writing it off, you know. I'm not writing it off. I think it's not hopeless, but it's, you know, we have to approach the future with like kind of an eyebrow raised, and I don't know, you know, I'm still excited about music, you know, like I still want to be as involved or more than ever, you know, because for me it's still like a soul, you know, it's a passion thing. But we'll see. We'll see where things go.
Oh yes. At least it's not maybe the best time for rock music, but music is not just rock music.
Yeah, exactly.
That's good. B is saying that you could have been on Big Bang Theory for the physics.
Maybe. It's a funny show.
Yeah. Novice guitarists often make their solo parts too complex, which doesn't always sound good. So do I too, unfortunately. How do you understand that a solo party will sound better if made easier?
Listen to players, man. Listen to just try and listen to a lot of music. And for me, my favorite guitar solos are the ones I can sing with my mouth. Like, if you can't sing the tune, if you can't sing it to somebody and have them sing it back, work on it until you can. You know, it's just an idea. You don't have to write every solo that way, but try writing one and see how it goes. You know.
That's a great suggestion. Heavy stuff here today. That's great. And now there is a very, very stupid question. I don't know who wrote this, maybe Federico, because this is the question. Can you tell us about some fun facts that happened to you on tour? And I was touring with us, and of course, Ravenscry, and you wrote it in the question. That's great.
I just remember to. Oh, come on.
Yeah, I mean, fuck. There's been a lot of
Another question.
tours and a lot of fun stuff, on tours. When I look, I don't know. When I'm thinking about this now, some things that come to mind, and for me, they're just like amazing experiences, that come to my mind. And one is getting to have like a private tour through the NASA, the Johnson Space Center down in Houston.
Great.
One of the guys who runs like their entire like security, their federal yeah, he's like, operating the security for the entire thing. He was a fan of the band and invited us, sort of on Facebook loosely one day. It's like, hey, if you guys are ever in Houston, just hit me up. We'll get you a tour in NASA. And when we first read that, I think we were like, sure, yeah, whatever, like I bet. And then it happened, we were going to Houston, so we hit him up, and sure as shit, we were able to drive up to that thing. He met us in a squad car with an assault rifle like inside of it, kind of thing. Not, let us in through the gates and took us, everywhere. And we got to go on to like the mission control. They put up a banner with the, you had in the mission control where, there's like the big screens and the guys on all the computers that that like the live camera from the International Space Station on one, and then like a welcome to Kobra and the Lotus banner on the next one.
Really?
On it, we got to go down and talk to some of the engineers and stuff. And I mean, that's just incredible, man. You don't,
Wow.
That's the kind of thing where you only get to do, under really, certain circumstances. And that was really cool. I had the best probably food of my life once. This is just a funny thing. While we were making our Prevail records in Denmark, Jake Dreyer, who was, the other guitar player in our band at the time, a good friend, he's always a foodie. He loves food. It's a passion of his, and I've always loved food too, but I appreciated how much he really loved food, because he was like willing to go to extra lengths to get great food. And I was like, fuck, I like this. This is a good thing, and he brought up the fact that Copenhagen has, a couple of these 3-star Michelin restaurants in it. And he convinced me. He's like, dude, this is like a once in a lifetime. You might never get this chance again. We should go there, and like, it's a little pricey or whatever, but like it's gonna be worth it. And it just took a little bit of arm twisting for me to be like, all right, let's go take this adventure. And we went and had one of the most incredible meals of my entire life. I'll never forget it, man. Like shit like that you just can't do at home. When you're out and about and you have these opportunities to see things and have experiences, that shit is priceless. Like I literally could not put a price tag on stuff like that. It's just so special. Touring with you guys was awesome, man. I recall that was my first time getting to drive really across the countryside of Spain and southern France a little bit, all the way to the coast over above Portugal there where we played. That was all a brand new experience for me. Before that I had been to maybe Madrid, and I thought it was just beautiful, and it was, I always love, like there's this thing where everybody, glorifies playing at like the festivals, with the sea of people, crowds and stuff like that. And that's amazing. Don't get me wrong. It's just humbling every time to get to play in front of any decent amount of people, but we got to go and play some fucking small local spots with local people who don't get shows very often, and that just takes me back to the kind of shit that I grew up on back home, and that energy was there, and that that sort of unjaded fanaticism that, you know, that where the people are just really love the music and they're there and they're excited. And that's what I remember about that tour. You know, it was a bunch of gigs like that, with just getting to see a part of the world I haven't been able to see, and sharing the culture, you know, with a bunch of great people. I think we had a lot of fun, you know, during those.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the best tours we have been onto. So yes. Also, I remember the energy from those small places coming back to the stage, because I think that in the smaller places, the contact with the public is more, with the crowd is more direct, you know. The energy you give with your music just comes back straight at you directly from the crowd in those small places, and that's absolutely great. Nothing wrong, of course, playing in front of thousands of people. That's great as well, but it's not the same thing. It's quite more raw, you know. In those small places. It's great.
Yes.
Oh,
I mean, it keeps you honest, you know, like you have to, it puts you in a place where you're really reminded why it is you're doing what you're doing, because if you're not there for the music, you're not going to be there.
Oh yes.
You know, like there's enough about it that's hard and tough on everybody involved, you know, that if you're not really there for the right reasons, like you're just not going to be there, I think, at all. So
Yeah, totally.
yeah.
Oh yes. Oh, Bill he has another question for you. Jasio, what are some of the best final antics you've been involved with?
Oh. Yeah, the last show tour pranks. That's what you're asking about, right? The tour pranks.
Yeah, the last show is about that.
I'll give you 3 great ones that come to mind. Maybe 4. One of my favorite tour pranks that was played on us, that we then did to other people later because it was so good, was on that Kiss tour. On the very last show, as we were playing our last song, all like the Kiss and the Def Leppard techs came up on stage and started dismantling our drummer's drum kit and just taking away pieces one at a time until he was left with a kick drum, a snare, and a hi-hat. That's like he had to finish the whole song with, you know, just pieces. And we were scared that we had gone over time, you know, because with that whole, there was a gig early on that tour where we had to start a little late because of just a bit of chaos of setup during the day. And when we were like 5 seconds over our set time, they shut the PA system off and all the lights in the building off on us.
Oh.
So we were like, oh my God, no, we fucked up, you know. Like, I was terrified because that's the last thing you want to do on any tour, let alone that kind of tour. Like you guys obviously know the most professional move in any case is to fucking be done when your set's supposed to be over, not when you've played all the songs you want to play. Right.
Oh, yes.
And so, you know, thankfully they were like really cool with it. And when that happened, we were terrified because we're like, shit, we did it again. And no, they were just playing, you know, tricks on us and decorating our mic stands with beads and all kinds of stuff. And so, yeah, we went on to do that exact same thing to at least 2 or 3 other bands in the future, which is just hilarious. So that's one. Another really great one I can recall was with we were on tour with Firewind.
Yeah.
And oh my God, it's gonna kill me. I think it was Camelot. Although dude, this is crazy. I would have to don't kill me. Don't kill me if people see this, and I can't remember, like there's just a lot of bands over the time. But I'm remembering Firewind because they're the ones who we punked Joe, who was playing drums for them, and before they went on stage, well, after they set up, we had time to procure baby powder, you know, like the whites, just sort of, you know, it's like flour almost, right?
Yeah.
and we covered all of his drum skins with it. After he set up, and they would come on every day to Rock You Like a Hurricane. The Scorpions was like the opening, and I remember we were standing on the side of the stage. I remember him like getting up, very limited time, because as soon as Rock You Like a Hurricane ends, he's got to do a fill and land into the first. It was Gus G's solo band. It wasn't Firewind. It was Gus G's solo band, I think. But yeah, so he gets and sits down, sees this shit all over his drums. Enough time to like tilt his tom over and like spill some of it off, but not enough time. He has to grab his sticks and do his big fill in the beginning and just all this like an explosion. And that was really funny. And then maybe the last I'll mention also, because I just saw a video of this the other day and it just made me laugh, was I did a tour with Camelot as a tech in 2015. I was just helping Thomas out in the band, with some of their stuff. And Kobra was there as well, singing backup. And Dragon Force was the support band for that tour. And on the last show, I can't remember who got these masks, but somebody gave me one of those hilarious T-Rex, like big rubber head.
Okay.
And I took Sam's guitar. I think it was Through Fire and Flames or something. Sam came off stage, or maybe I got an extra guitar. I can't even remember. But I went on stage with like a T-Rex head on, with a guitar, like playing with them on the song, and that was really funny, man. Like, just the video of that is fucking hysterical, So
That's great.
Yeah.
Funny.
Oh,
Great.
hi Emma. Hi. She was on tour with us on the French gigs.
Okay. Hey.
Hi Emma.
I am.
She played before us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then
Leon, Nancy, and the other place I don't remember. Montpellier. Yeah.
Right. Cool.
We have a lot of comments also regarding small versus big venues. From a fan's perspective, small is awesome. When I saw Yasio with Kobra and LOTUS, I was close enough that I could have helped play his guitar.
Yeah, good. Do it. Give me a second to grab a drink. You guys ever have that happen where you're playing and somebody in the crowd literally reaches up and is like hitting your strings as you're playing, and you're like, really, like, it's flattering, like, I love how excited you are, but I'm actually like, it's kind of fucking shit up for me for a second.
Yeah, it happened to me, but since I'm a bass player, no one noticed the difference, so that's good.
Right.
Hi, Aldin. Hi.
Hi, man.
Okay, let's move on with the next question. Great, Bill. He's a big fan of you guys.
Yeah, I know Bill. I've seen Bill for a while, man. Thank you. The Grove, Anaheim, California. That Grove.
Do you have any side projects in the meantime while we wait for the?
Like, I don't know, not really officially. I had my band before I was with Kobra, Shadowblade, and when I joined Kobra and the Lotus, I was really, I made a personal, choice, and as well, it was at the beginning, especially, there was a lot of talk about exclusivity and stuff because we were signed, the band had signed to a major label in Canada, and with that comes these contracts sometimes that say that you can't really do everything you want, and that sort of relaxed over the years, and but really it was sort of my main effort musically. But as time has gone by, more and more of my year has sort of opened up, and I've been more interested in doing production with other artists and for other bands, which like I kind of always did. I was like making demos and stuff for bands back home quite early, in my early 20s and stuff. But over the years, I have been writing like I say, I'm a songwriter, and I write lots of songs, and I write a lot of music, and not everything makes sense for Kobra and the Lotus, and not everything is even metal music, you know. So I have quite a large library of music now that I'm sort of deciding what I'm going to do with, and in my mind, loosely, I can say that it's going to look like me releasing music on a few projects of my own, probably moving forward. At least probably one that's going to be like a metal project that is going to be totally like just, you know, a personal taste thing with absolutely zero. I'm not going to be trying to meet anyone's expectations for anything. You know, it's just going to be like a personal sort of thing, and which will be a lot of fun, I'm sure. And yeah, probably some, like I was talking to you guys about before, a little more stuff on that's edging on the side of, you know, I won't say pop music, but, you know, pop music.
Yeah.
You know, that sort of approach, and that's not going to discount, you know, heavy drums or heavy guitars or any of that stuff. I think it all has a place. You know, we were chatting a bit before the stream how top 40 music these days is sort of an amalgamation of lots of genres that are just smashed together to make catchy songs, and I love the challenge behind that, and I love the songwriting and stuff. And you know, like one of my favorite bands that really, you know, got onto the international profile in the last few years, they're called 21 Pilots. I don't know.
Oh, great! They are great. Yeah.
Right, so they had that hit a few summers ago, that Stressed Out song that like worldwide big and really put them on a big map. But if you listen to their albums, like their whole records, I mean, dude, it's rock music, it's punk music, it's hip hop, it's pop, like it's all of these things just kind of elegantly strewn into this really great songwriting, you know, and the production is just, you know, what everyone refers to as genre, in my mind, is, I look at it as a palette, you know, like a painter can choose to paint an entire painting with red, blue, green, and black. And you can make a whole painting with red. You can say, I'm going to draw a landscape. Here's some mountains and a lake and some forest, and I'm only going to use red, blue, green, and black to paint it, right? And you can do that. And you can make something that's a landscape with red, blue, green, and black. You can also make a landscape with yellow, white, pink, and purple, and make it equally as interesting, but it's just going to be different colors, you know? And songs to me are like that. If you have a good song, the concept is there, the skeleton is there. It's a chord base and melody combination, and the instruments that you apply to make it something is a palette, and that gets translated into genre a lot of the time, right? Because you can do it with heavy guitars and a live drum kit, and it's going to be a rock song, or you can do it with synthesizers and programmed drums, and suddenly it's something else, but it's the same song.
Oh yes, yeah. I think that 21 Pilots fits your example pretty well. Also, well, their second album is more of a traditional kind of rock music, I think. In fact, I prefer the first one. I think it was more experimental, more, you know, unique, but they are great. They are absolutely great, and also they use very few things to do what they do. There is a lot of groove happening, a lot of.
It's amazing, and it's two guys.
Yes,
you know? It's two guys, and fuck, you know, another band that I really love, One Republic. You know, Ryan Tedder's project. I don't know if you know, but like.
Yes.
You know, those are arguably pop songs that they're writing, but also, like, they're a rock band. You know, like it's actually a really heavy production. If you were to go see their live shit, it's a big, heavy production. And, you know, U2, when they go on tour, it's like One Republic gets to go do that tour with them because it's a fit sonically, you know, like they're writing these incredible songs. And, you know, they have collaborations with like Peter Gabriel and stuff like on their records that are just these really cool, you know, tracks. So I really respect him as a producer and as a songwriter, because he Like, he doesn't give a fuck. He just likes to write great songs and put whatever production he feels is right for the song. And he can go and he writes Beyonce's Halo on the side, you know, and then comes back and writes these big, you know, rock anthems that are, you know, people might say it's pop music, and it is, but it's also rock music, you know, like,
Yeah. Well,
they don't have to be mutually exclusive in my mind. You know, there's so much room to connect a lot of these dots. And I think that if people are a lover of music, you know, really, if you love music, you can get over, you know, your personal feelings about different genres. It might be a hot take, you know, but I always used to think, like, when people, because I used to be like this. I used to be like, oh, fucking pop sucks and heavy metal is only real. And in my mind, it's like, are you a fan of music or are you a fan of your opinion? Which is it? You know, because it's like, if you love music, you know, you should just kind of be a little more open-minded. In my opinion, to each their own. Music is such a fucking personal connection for people. So I'll never tell people what they should or shouldn't like. It, you know, if there's music in the world that speaks to somebody at all, I think it's a beautiful thing. But yeah, I get inspired by a lot.
I totally agree. Actually, I always ask, what does pop even mean? What's
Popular.
What's pop music? Yeah, I know, I know what pop stands for, but I mean,
but people forget that.
it's
right?
not the genre.
Yeah, exactly. People forget that in the 80s, rock was pop music, right?
Exactly.
Like in the 80s,
Yes.
you know, like rock was the pop music. Motley Crue was fucking pop music. Poison was pop music. Fucking the Bruce Springsteen was fucking pop music. You know, Aerosmith, pop music. Now they call it classic rock, but like at the time, that was what popular music was. At the same time as Madonna, at the same time as Michael Jackson, you know, like,
it's just music.
Just music.
Oh yes, great.
Yeah, Bill knows what's up. There you go.
He asks also, have you heard Poets of the Fall?
Soon by Bill?
Nope. I should check it out.
And going on, which are your hobbies and interests besides music? Which is not a hobby. Whoever votes this question is stupid.
Yeah. So if you were to take every facet of music production and stick it in there, so I can't talk about any of that, because it's like, you know, writing music is one thing. Being an engineer for music is another. Learning to mix is another. Learning to be a good producer is another. Learning to program sounds is another, you know? And so I spent a lot of my time immersed in that world, but like, pretend we can't talk about anything music. I've been in the years, I got into astrophotography for a little while. Like, I got into, I have a little setup where I have I have a telescope and I have a mount that can sort of move in the exact opposite direction that the Earth is spinning. So like that allows you to take a long exposure on one piece of the sky, you know, and collect light data that you can't necessarily see with your eyes. So when the picture is done, you can see a fucking galaxy, you know, like on your picture. And to me, that's like insane. Cool. So when I discovered you could do that, I started playing around with that. And I started just by literally mounting a regular camera on a tripod and taking like 3 seconds at a time exposures, because I didn't have the special mount, and then stacking them, like 1,000 of them or whatever, to get half an hour's worth of light data. And then you can do the processing to bring out the image that's there. And then eventually I kind of got a little more into it. And, you know, my girlfriend got me the mount for Christmas one year, that, you know, the special thing. And so I doubled up on the investment and got a telescope and started taking like some pretty cool pictures of like some galaxies and stuff that, like, quite honestly blows my mind that the technology is available, that, you know, someone like me can go to a store and buy the things necessary to do this, to produce this photo that would have been impossible 50 years ago, you know.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. If there is a lot of light pollution, you cannot do that, right?
You are correct, yeah. And so there's two. The ultimate goal is to get a good signal to noise ratio. And
Yeah.
what the light pollution is noise. And what your signal in the sky are very faint, light sources. So there are multiple ways to sort of tackle that. One is to get insanely long amounts of data. So like the more data you can get, the more you can filter out the light pollution using math. But that's sort of not the best way to deal with it. You can buy a filter, filters that will filter out only the spectrums that are polluting to let through the rest, which I have one of those and it works great. And the most important thing is to just fucking drive away from the city. Honestly, I'm lucky to live really close to a mountain range, that doesn't have much light pollution. So in my car, in an hour and a half or less, I can be somewhere that is way better than inside the city and get some results that aren't as bad.
That's great. We don't have a lot of areas here in Italy without light pollution, so
I bet.
it's hard. Yeah, I know. But I always like to watch the sky when I go on the top of mountains during the night, and so it's just great. You can actually see the galaxy, the lights from the galaxy, and it's awesome. Because you can feel the universe, you can see it, and you can feel part of it, and you feel extremely small. And I love it. I love the sensation. It's great.
Yeah, it's humbling. It's humbling. It reminds you just how crazy it is that we're here to begin with. And then you start thinking about like, man, my problems in life suddenly don't seem, on the big picture. I could complain about a few things, but I mean, fuck, we're here.
Yeah, you have the sensation that it changes nothing, and it's great.
Yeah.
Oh, hi, Damian. Thank you, thank you very much.
Hi, man. Thank you, my friend.
And I told you guys before the stream started, but now that we're live, I'll throw my word in with Damien. I was just listening to your album. It sounds awesome, man. Congratulations on putting out another piece of work.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I hope that we will be able to play it live soon. We'll see. With this whole situation is crazy, so we'll see.
Yeah.
Almost 2 hours of live. That's good. That's maybe a record.
What's the usual? What's your times usually like?
Oh, it's like 1 hour, 1 hour 50. But I think that this live is extremely interesting. So it just flew away. It's great.
It's great.
We have another comment. Oh, hi, sisters. Okay, good.
What?
We usually end the lives with a final speech. So if you want to have a final speech, like you can say whatever to everyone who's watching us.
Yeah, I mean, I would take the opportunity to just say thank you. Thank you to everyone, man. Over the years, it's like been, you guys know, being in a band isn't always easy, and getting to share your time and your music and your culture with people and with each other is what makes it special, a lot of the time. So just gratitude. Mary Kona wants someone to say her name, so there you go. Yeah, thank you to everyone who's been to a show, to every musician in person, that I've had the opportunity to be on a stage with or next to, anyone who's had a conversation with me, frankly, it's just, for sharing that time with us and with each other, I am grateful. And don't stop going to live shows, don't stop supporting your artists, however it is. Just, everyone's going through it, it's a tough industry, and every little bit of support counts. So, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
I agree with everything. I suppose it's the first time ever that I agree 100% with someone in real life. So that's great. It was awesome, and thank you for your time and thank you for this opportunity. It was
My pleasure,
truly
man.
an
Thank you
honor.
guys for asking me to be here, dude. Anytime. You can do this fucking every 6 months or a year if you want, or next
That
week.
would be great. That would be great. There are a lot of things to talk about actually, so that would be great.
Yeah.
No, thank you to everyone also who was with us. Thanks to everyone, and stay safe and see you next time.
Yeah.
I want to remember to all of our friends that tomorrow we are going to release another making of our songs from our last album. Federico, which song is?
It's The Entertainer, I'm not wrong. The Entertainer.
Okay, so the entertainment is going to be released. Maybe it's already on
Yes,
our music. Yeah,
yes,
so
it is.
Yeah.
check it out, and also check out our social media for Yasio if you want to share with our friends your works, your musical life, or anything else.
Yeah, you can find me on most of the main social medias at Yasio Music, JASIO Music, on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Yeah, I'm not like a daily poster kind of person, but I share stuff when I have something to share.
Okay.
Oh, look at that. Fucking pro, man.
So, okay, again, thank you very much, and have a great day or night. Everything else.
Good
Yeah,
night.
you guys too, man. It's the daytime here, so
So,
Yeah.
we'll see you guys soon. Ciao.
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 I don't know how to leave.